You know, every few years, the entire planet just seems to stop and watch the Olympic Games. It's this incredible spectacle of human achievement, right? A global party celebrating sport. But behind all those inspiring moments and the waving flags, there is a massive, multi-billion-dollar financial machine. So today, let's pull back the curtain and follow the money.
I mean, it's a question you've probably asked yourself. You see the logos everywhere, you watch the broadcasts, but where does all that cash actually end up? How does it get to the athletes we're all cheering for? Well, in this explainer, we're going to trace that money from the moment it's made all the way to the finish line.
Okay, first things first. Where does all this money even come from? Turns out, the Olympic financial engine is really powered by a handful of key sources.
So you've got 4 major streams here, but 2 of them are just absolute giants. The sale of broadcast rights, what you pay for to watch the games at home, and the global sponsorship program, called the TOP program, they bring in the vast majority of the revenue. Sure, tickets and local sponsorships matter, but pretty much everything kicks off with those huge deals for what we see on TV and the brands we see on the sidelines.
And look, this didn't just happen overnight. The International Olympic Committee, or the IOC, they've spent decades building this financial base. And that stability, that's what allows the games to keep growing. It ensures that sports organizations all over the world have a predictable stream of funding they can count on.
All right, so the IOC collects all this cash. What happens next? This is where the Olympic model gets really interesting. It's less like a typical corporation that's just hoarding profits and more like a massive redistribution engine.
And this chart right here, this tells the whole story. A full 90% of all the money that comes in gets sent right back out into the world of sport. The IOC itself, it only keeps 10% to cover its own bills and keep the lights on. So the big takeaway is this: the money doesn't just sit in one place, it flows.
And here's a map of that flow. A huge chunk goes straight to the OCOGs. That's the local organizing committee in whatever city is hosting the games. The rest gets split up between the international sports federations, the groups that govern each sport, and more than 200 national Olympic committees that are on the ground developing athletes back in their home countries.
So we've got all these acronyms flying around: IOC, IFS, NOCs. It can definitely feel like a bit of an alphabet soup. So let's quickly break down who's who in this whole global structure.
This table makes it super clear. Think of it like this. The IOC is at the very top. They're the guardians of the games. Then you have the IFs, like the folks in charge of swimming or track and field, who set all the specific rules for their sport. And finally, you have the NOCs, like Team USA or Team GB, who are in charge of picking the athletes and sending them off to compete. Each one has a totally distinct and vital role to play.
Okay, so we've traced the money to the big organizations, but how does it actually reach the athletes themselves? This is where the funding has its most personal and, I think, its most powerful impact.
It all comes down to a special group within the IOC called Olympic Solidarity. Its whole purpose is to take a share of that broadcast money and use it to fund programs for athletes and coaches. And there's a special focus on helping out the national Olympic committees that have the fewest resources. It's really all about leveling the playing field.
And does it work? Oh yeah, the results are kind of stunning. Just take the London 2012 Games, for example. Athletes who got direct financial help through these Olympic Solidarity scholarships went on to win 76 medals. That is 76 times a dream was realized, powered by this global funding system. It's such a clear, tangible return on investment, literally turning broadcast rights into podium finishes.
Now, this model has been incredibly successful. There's no doubt about that. But what's next? The financial world is changing super fast, and some new, really innovative ideas are bubbling up that could completely reshape how sports get funded in the future.
One of the most exciting shifts is something called impact investing. Think of it this way. Instead of just donating money to a youth sports program, an investor puts in capital to help it grow. And the goal isn't just to get their money back, but also to see a real, measurable improvement in the community, like better health for local kids. You're investing for a double bottom line: social good and a financial return. So what's the real difference here? Well, this slide lays it out perfectly. With a traditional grant, you get paid to do an activity, say run a sports camp. But with something called a social outcomes contract, or SOC, a private investor pays for the camp up front. A government or a big foundation only pays that investor back if the camp achieves specific pre-agreed results, like a 10% drop in school absenteeism. It totally shifts the risk and makes everyone focus on paying for success, not just for effort. It's a game changer.
And the innovation doesn't stop there. We're seeing a whole new toolkit emerge. You've got crowdfunding, which lets fans directly fund an athlete's training. Community shares let neighbors literally own a piece of their local club. And new tax breaks are encouraging more private investment into sports for social good. I mean, the way we fund sport is becoming more democratic and more creative than ever before.
Which, of course, brings us to our final question. We've followed the money from these huge global broadcasts all the way down to individual athletes, and now we're looking into the future of social finance. This flood of new capital and new ideas holds incredible promise. But as we innovate, the big challenge will be making sure that every single dollar, whether it comes from a traditional TV deal or a complex impact investment, ultimately serves to strengthen those core Olympic values that unite us all: excellence, friendship, and respect.